All I can say is this is beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. It's like, where do you start? And I am telling you, I wish that where we could start could be 100 years from now. And that is to be around to actually experience the vision that we are living into, to experience the work that we are doing today. I want to start with this vision and, say to us that our vision is an old vision going back to the first Aku. It is an old vision. Yes. It goes back to who we call Tepe Aku, the first ancestor. And the first ancestor, as we teach whenever you take any of our classes and you're going to hear this, that the first ancestor started off with saying, I wish I could make things easier. I wish I could make my life better. I wish I had something better to eat than what I got right now. I wish I had more to eat than what I have right now. And it is that vision and it is that thought that ushered in what we celebrate as the way of life. As we call it, the way of Ankh, the way of life. And it is that particular vision that gave birth to the African way of life. Several million years ago is what we are tied into today. So that the ritual, the celebration that we are having today is reconnecting to the lineage, as I call it, reconnecting the umbilical cord to our parent. If we were the child, as we are, the children of our ancestors, we are reconnecting that umbilical cord and are being fed by them, the cultural umbilical cord. We are being fed by them and guided by them in the way that we are going forward. The African way of life, without undoubtedly, has given us a planet full of African people. Our people from over 5 million years ago have come into being, have taken the way of life and have taken that vision, and each day has improved upon the vision that our Ku, their parents, set before them. So each day we have improved on the way of life. So from our ancestors of the Twa, the Kore, the San, and those gatherer hunter ancestors who are known by many, many other names, we want to honor them because we're honoring them today. They set us on this path of the way of life. They set us, on this path of answering the vision, answering the request that our first ancestors put to the Neteru and put to themselves. I wish it could be better, and I want it to be better, and they set out and they endeavored to make it better. So for millions of years, they have improved on the way of life. They provided more food to their children than the food that they had. They gave their children more understanding of how to live in the world and live with creation so that they could live into abundance and prosperity. They put their children on the path, and their children put their children on the path. They were so good and successful at what they did that they even ushered in a new era, or what some would call a new world order is what occurred. Let me go back just a moment, because out of this way that they lived, and when we talk about living with the Neteru, these early ancestors lived with Ra, they lived with Geb, they lived with Net, they lived with Set, they lived with Nu, they lived with Shu, they lived with Tefnut. They lived every day of their lives giving honor and respect to these Neteru. And these Neteru were ever present with them. They asked them, what do we need to do, Great Ra, during the course of this day to benefit from your blessing and your guidance? They asked each day, what do we need to do of you, great Geb, to benefit from your blessing and your guidance. They asked this of great Nu. And they asked this of great Set, who led them in the way of hunting. They asked this of the great Net, who led them in the way of hunting. They asked this of the great Netter that was the tree. They asked this of the great Netter that was the fruit that came from the ground. They asked this of Heb Peret, the great and sacred fish. And so it is from them that they set forth and they gave to their children, honor these Neteru, follow these Neteru, live in the way of these Neteru, and you'll prosper. As I said, they were so successful that they ushered in a new era. Millions of years later, we come into the way of the animal hunter, the animal herder, the way of Nubia. And so with these ancestors, success led to more success. The new Neter came, appeared before us, the Neter Amun, the Neter Heru, the sacred bull and the sacred cow. And they gave of our ancestors and said, here is more food. Here is more abundance and prosperity. And this is sort of like a reward for living in the way of life. And they were so successful at what they did that they were able to take their way around the ancient world and give new societies, give birth to new societies. They celebrated the new life that came into being. Here, when we are celebrating, the sacred lamb, the symbol of the child is the lamb. That comes out of the African way of life that is given into the world. When we're celebrating the new calf that comes into being, this is coming out of the African way of life and their way of celebrating, very similar to what we are doing today in celebrating Peret. And we're saying to these, our Aku, our ancestors, dua, for what you have done that allowed us to get here. They were so successful at what they were doing because they were keeping to the way of life. They were keeping to the way of interacting with the Neteru, that the Neteru revealed more to them, it gave more to them, such that the Neter Geb, who had been providing our ancestors with food all along, decided and said to them, I am going to give over my domain to my son, Asar. I'm going to give over my domain of my son, Asar, to you. And Asar, who in taking on the domain of Geb, what we call the earth, decided also to give to us, our ancestors, us human beings, knowledge of food, how we could do it for ourselves. And so Asar gave over to us knowledge of the seed, which is next to life the greatest gift, I contend, that we have. Because it actually transformed us from people who were dependent, utterly dependent on the Neteru, to a people who are now participating in producing our own food. So where before we had to go out and hunt, had to go out and gather, had to go out and fish, herd our animals. Now we go out, we got some seed, and we can go and plant. And the seed can be tiny, and it can be portable, and we can carry it with us. And so we can actually go further afield into places where we know that the Neteru are going to manifest. As long as there's Ra, as long as there's Geb, as long as there's Shu, as long as there's Nu, we can generate food. And so the Neteru gave us Neter-like power. They put us in power. And so keeping to the way of the Neteru, we became empowered. And we, our ancestors, our Aku, went more. Not only did they cause Kemet to blossom into this tremendous society, but they took the civilization of Kemet around the ancient world and shared it with their relatives. Here's more food. Following the request of our first Aku, Tepe Aku, here is more food. Here is a greater variety of food. and here's food in abundance, and you will not have to worry about it anymore. All that is requested of us is that we keep to the way of the Aku. And so for our ancestors, they lived in a society that was known as TaNefer, the land of the Neteru, the world of the Neteru, where everyone who encountered them said, here is the home where the Neteru dwell. Here is the home where the people are guided by the Neteru in everything that they do. All their thoughts are guided by the Neteru. All their actions is guided by the Neteru. The Neteru is celebrated everywhere. Do you know in Kemet, every week there was celebration of the Neteru of some sort or other? Every week. Almost every day. Multiple celebrations of the Neteru all over. And so if you can imagine for us that not only in Kemet, but the fact that it was mirrored and reflected all over the world, the ancient world, the Neteru was celebrated and being thanked all the time for what they had provided and what they had given. And here we are celebrating abundance and joy. For thousands of years, our people have lived the way of life in a way that has simply been beautiful. That's all I can say about it. It's just been beautiful when we reflect on it. And this is a part of the vision. When we say today that we are coming together to celebrate Heb Peret, going into the season of Peret, we're celebrating what we did. We're reconnecting to this. This is that umbilical cord. This is where we're reconnecting to it, because what they did is what we did. It's ours. We are their children. We are their progeny. We are their Peret. We are their seed that lived on. And then comes Isfit. Isfit is the period in which chaos came into the lives of our people. And this chaos that came into the lives of our people disconnected us from the Neteru. It disconnected us from our way. So today, many of us all over the world are not living in TaNefer. We're not living in society that is guided by the Neteru. We're living in societies that are abrogated, societies that are destabilized, societies that are disoriented, societies that are lost from what was sacred for our people for millions of years. And so here we are, we're not on the path. We are in what our people call this space of chaos. And so it is for us, because I'm not going to dwell on the chaos. We know that we're in the chaos. So I'm not going to itemize all the things that we're going through in dealing with the chaos, because the chaos for us can be minimized. Here we are now, aware that we are in this period of chaos, and we know what we must do to get back. And so in getting back, we created TaNefer Ankh. TaNefer Ankh as a community and as an organization comes into being in 1982. But I want us to understand that where we are in terms of getting back didn't start with TaNefer Ankh. It didn't start with me as the founder of TaNefer Ankh, because you see, I was a Garveyite. And before I was a Garveyite, I was a Malcolm X man. You know, at one point, I was in the Nation of Islam. And when I came into consciousness, I joined the Nation of Islam and followed the black nationalism of the Nation of Islam, not the Islamism. I don't want anybody to get confused. I was there only a short period of time. But it was the nationalism within the organization that called me to join it, because they were speaking to what we needed to do, come home. Except that organization had overshot Africa. You know, so, yeah, we were looking to the east, but we went too far. To the east, and looking at the wrong people for our solution. And when I came clear on that, just like Honorable Malcolm had come clear in the last trip that he had taken abroad, he went home to Africa, went to Kemet as a matter of fact. And I'm so thoroughly glad that during his lifetime he had the opportunity to go there and know for himself. Because when he comes back, he actually does a speech. There's a pamphlet out there called Malcolm X Speaks on Afro-American History, which was such a profound work. Not that he didn't know something about African history prior to journeying, but to actually be able to go there. And not only that, his trip of going there, but can you imagine the Aku, the ancestors, the spirit of our ancestors, the spirit of our Neteru, being there to welcome him, knowing for, ahead what impact he was going to have on others based on what he was doing and what he was saying to us. And as I said before, the way vision lives and the way vision goes on, the work that we do and the vision that we put out there impacts people way beyond our own lifetime.